Joining me today, I have what many people know as Professor Popsicle, although his name is Gordon Giesbrecht. Recently, you retired from the official position of professor at the University of Manitoba in the Faculty of Kinesiology and Recreation Management. Thank you so much for joining me today, Gordon.
Well, thanks for having me on, Sylvia. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. First and foremost, a very happy retirement to you. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I've actually been very busy since I retired, so I haven't really had a chance to for it to really sink in. But it's very interesting. I'm still getting up early, and my day is full. But it's there is a bit of a light feeling, and I don't have to teach. I don't have any committee work to do, and all the deadlines I have are self-imposed now.
Nice. Right on. So, like I was talking about, Professor Popsicle, you have made a name for yourself, diving into cold water, helping people know how to get out of vehicles that are submerged in freezing cold water. I would love to know, are there any like real standout memories or times over the years with that?
Well, as far as a research perspective goes, the firsts are important. My first hypothermia trial I did on myself, and uh, well, one of them was the coldest, the lowest core temperature that anyone has ever been taken down to in an ethically approved study, down to 32 degrees. And I actually forget parts of that experiment because I was so cold. So that was interesting. And when I was in Alaska, we did our first vehicle submersion trial, and we thought we understood the physics of it all. And I expected that once the water hit a certain level, I'd be able to open the door. And as it turned out, I learned a lot of things. I had two scuba tanks, front and back seat, so I was safe if I couldn't get out, and I couldn't get out. And I was just thinking, I'm supposed to be able to get out right now, and it's not working. And so finally did get out without having to resort to using the scuba tanks, but we learned an awful lot that day, and that's helped inform what we teach people about what to do if your vehicle ever ends up in water.
Absolutely. I would love to know. I don't know the answer, so a little risky asking this, but has anyone ever informed you or have you heard of somebody who said, you know what, you said this one thing and it ended up helping me incredibly?
Well, we know that both in the hypothermia avoidance and treatment area of research and the vehicle submersion research, both of those we've got documented cases of where it has actually saved lives. I've had a handful of people say, "Hey, you saved my life," which is kind of gratifying, including in front of Toronto City Hall that we were doing a demonstration for something, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden someone yelled out, "Hey, Dr. Giesbrecht, you saved my life." Which is really gratifying. And so obviously I stopped and we talked about the situation. And yeah, so it's been very fortunate to have done work over the last, third of a century that has actually led to things that immediately practically help the general public or professionals. And, it's kind of when I started, I thought, oh, if we could just I'm going to publish papers and stuff, but if we could do stuff that would sort of last beyond when I retired and actually do some tangible good right away, uh, that's kind of a dream, eh? And been very fortunate that the work has worked out that way.
How gratifying. It must make being so cold a little bit worth it then.
Yeah. Well, I practice the Christmas spirit now. It's much better to give than to receive. I haven't made myself cold for quite a while. I just watch other people do it, give them instructions, and that's it. I have been hypothermic 40 times, so that might be I think it's probably a record, but it would take too much grief to try and document that for the Guinness Book of Records. But
Yeah. Well, we'll just use that temporarily then. Professor Popsicle, that's such a great nickname. Was that you who gave that to yourself, or did that come about in a different way?
no, Outside Magazine did a feature article on me in 2003. And interesting, I was anxiously waiting for the thing to come out, and I would kind of walk by the newsstands when we had newsstands, walking by every day to see if the new edition was out. And it actually, I didn't see it till I was going from one plane to another in the airport in Minneapolis, and I saw there was a new one, and I went and grabbed it and opened it up and it said, "Meet Professor Popsicle." So that's the first I ever saw or heard of it. And yeah, I had a choice. I kind of could have put a quash that early on. And I thought, I'm going to let that go. I think it's pretty cool. And a lot of people don't know my name. They just know me as Professor Popsicle. So
It
it's
is
easier.
definitely
It's
stuck.
easier to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So officially, I know you're still definitely doing some things with the University of Manitoba, but officially you retired January 1st, 2024. Huge congrats. Any plans in these next couple years? And are you sticking away from cold or yeah, what does that look like?
Well, I was actually in the coldest freezer in the world. I think last week in Denver, I'm working with a group doing some research on medical combat medics providing medical care in a cold environment. The freezer, there's two freezers. One's minus 34 and one's minus 26. So it was still, but I didn't spend huge amounts of time in there. I watched from outside the window. But so I've got a number of projects that I have to write up. I have told people that, I've always said most of our work is funded by taxpayers' dollars, and so it's up to us to make sure we finish the projects and get them written up so the information's out there. So I have a position, a no salary part-time position now as a senior scholar at the university, which allows me office space. And I still, kind of keep my hand in this on a part-time basis till I run out of things to do. I don't know when that'll be. But in the meantime, we're going to try and build up the amount of time we spend doing missions work or humanitarian work. I've done about 5 missions trips in the last 2 years, and I'd like to do that certainly at least once, if not multiple times every year, as well as volunteering here in Winnipeg. So trying to do some things ministry-wise, locally and internationally over the next few years.
That sounds
I'm very
amazing.
fortunate. I'm healthy,
Yeah.
and so just trying to redeem the time as much as I can while I'm still healthy and able to do things and do things for the Lord's work.
That's amazing. I love it. And not just putting together puzzles then.
No, no.
Right
I might
on.
do it once in a while, but if the day that puzzles become my daily routine, then I'm in trouble.
Okay, so because you're Professor Popsicle, I would love to hear your thoughts. So I've been seeing more and more. In fact, I even have a friend who does these ice baths every day. You kind of started this whole thing, I feel. But what are your thoughts on like daily freezing cold ice baths?
Well, there's a really complicated answer to that, but the simple answer is the Finns have been doing this for hundreds of years, right? They, it's a typical thing for, the typical Finn to at lunchtime go jump in the freezing river for a quick swim and come back. Certainly, it's refreshing. There are some benefits to it, which I haven't really spent a huge amount of time getting into it. All I know is I've got the T-shirt for getting cold, so I don't I won't be doing that anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think I'm good. Other people can try the
Yeah,
trend. I think I'm good. I live in Manitoba already. I think
yeah,
that's good
that's right.
enough.
I already got my
Awesome.
cold exposure just getting to the office today.
Right on. If you don't mind, I would love to hear a little bit more about these past 5 missions trips that I actually didn't know about. What is
Oh,
the heart behind it, and what do those look like?
well, the first one was a couple of years ago. I went to well right after the war started in Ukraine. Uh, we knew some missionaries who were in Russia who basically had to leave Russia, and they weren't vaccinated yet, so they had to go to Turkey to sit there for a few months and get some vaccinations and get their paperwork to come to Canada. So they were Russian speaking, and there were some Russian, an entire Russian speaking orphanage. Was all the kids from there were evacuated from eastern Ukraine to Turkey. And so they said, well, hey, there's a whole mission field right here for us to work at. So I asked if I could help them out. So I took a bunch of sporting goods there, and we did a sport camp for them. So our unofficial mission statement was to taking North American sports to Russian-speaking orphans from Ukraine now living in Turkey. And so that was the first one. Then I went
Okay.
with a group from our Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada district of Manitoba to do a building project in Zambia, and I've been to Ukraine 3 times in the last year actually, um, where I've basically worked with our church. Soul Sanctuary supports a church in Lutsk, which is in the west of Ukraine, and they do a lot of work with just helping out in the war effort, just helping people who are displaced, and now bringing humanitarian aid to the east. And they have some people there are in the church, are involved in a chaplaincy program in the military. So I went with them to 3 different places on the 3 different trips, basically 10 kilometers from the front lines to where the first critical care units, what they're called, where casualties, someone gets shot or blown up in the field, and the first place they bring them is to these places where they stabilize them before they get sent to a hospital. And so I took probably altogether about $70,000 or $80,000 worth of medical gear, and provided some education about trauma and cold to the medics. And yeah, so it's been a busy couple of years.
Wow, wow, wow. So you're
By
retiring,
the
but
way,
not stopping at all.
if you're people say, is it dangerous where you were? I said, well, if you can hear the bombs, that's not so bad. If you can hear shooting, that's bad. Then you're too close. So I haven't heard any shooting yet. So I've been about 10 miles away from the front, and seen some of the wounded soldiers come in. And thankfully, I wasn't there when any major injuries have come in. But I've seen pictures, and it's pretty gory sometimes. And just other than being trying to provide some, and I pray for the folks whenever I'm there, whenever I talk to them, provide information. And it's one aspect of that is just to be thankful that we're where we are, where nobody's going to invade us. We can be very thankful. We have 2 oceans on either side of our country, so people can't just walk in across our border and start shooting at us.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to get all of our listeners to pray for you and your retirement. I got to say it with quotes because seriously. But your missions trips coming up, and it sounds like you are really good at staring fear in the face and just keep going in everything that
Yeah.
you have done. I'm really inspired this morning. Thank you so much for
Well,
sharing
thanks.
all of
I
that.
should mention one other thing. So I've been very busy leaving the house every day since I retired. Well, it's only been 3 weeks, so no big deal. But next week I'm staying home. I've got 2 weeks booked, but I will be busy because for the next 2 weeks I'm going to read through the Bible.
Oh, wow. Oh my
I've
goodness
never
gracious.
I've never had a 2 week period that I could schedule other than a holiday, which you're doing stuff with your family. I've never had it in my life. I've never had a 2 week period where I could say, no, I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to dedicate it to one thing. So I'm going to do that from front to back. And
Wow.
obviously it won't be very deep Bible study, but I think it'll be very interesting to get that whole perspective. Like I've read all of it over at different times, right? But to get it the whole thing in one go will be a very interesting perspective that many of us don't get.
Absolutely.
Who takes 2 weeks to read through one book anyway?
Well, right now, Dr. Popsicle is doing it. Well, that is
Yeah,
fantastic. I pray that it is enriching to you because I do
yeah,
believe the word is alive. It's amazing.
that's
So
right.
that is fantastic. If people want to potentially support missions trips or even find out more about you, can they do that in some way?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't have a website for that or anything. they could make donations to Soul Sanctuary
Okay.
/ missions. That would do it. And they could put yeah, I don't know what to say there. I'm not sure if I'm going to Ukraine again. Our church is probably going to shift focus to Kenya. So they could donate to Soul Sanctuary Missions Kenya, I guess would be the way to do it.
Okay, wonderful. We'll let people know. Thank you so much for this morning. I
Okay.
really appreciate it. And God bless you in all that you do.
Yeah, God bless. And as I always say, keep cool, but don't freeze.